Good morning, everybody.
Good
Looking forward.
morning.
Good morning. How are you, Amy?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good, thank you. It is cold though. We've gone from moaning that we're too warm to being absolutely freezing. So the temperature has dipped. We've all got big woolly jumpers and things like that now.
Autumn's kicked in.
It has. Autumn has kicked in. I cannot believe we're nearly at the end of September. It is
Autumn
madness.
is actually my favourite season.
I like autumn. I like all the clothes. I like all I like this sort of seasonal changes. It's nice before you
Yeah.
get into the deep, dark depths of winter, basically.
Yeah, those crisp, sunny days. There's no place like London on an autumn sunny day.
Couldn't agree more. Well, it's nice to have you. Nice to have my partner in crime back for today. I'm excited. We've got loads and loads and loads to talk about today. It's been such a strange time over the last sort of 2 weeks, and I think that we are starting to get back into some kind of new normal after the last week. And I can't believe I'm saying new normal again after the last time we said new normal. But that's what it feels like, doesn't it? But look, thank you everybody for joining us. I'm Donna. You see me week in, week out talking to you guys lots about some amazing social media, and we've got Amy, which I'm excited about.
Hello. Nice to be back with you.
It's lovely to have you back. And anybody who comes on, if you could, please feel free to check out the chat function. Let us know that you're here, where you're from, what you're doing. Are you cold today or are you roasting? What are we doing today? And we are going to get started. Right. This is going to sound a bit ambiguous, but I promise it will all make sense. So today we're going to cover how a thing becomes a thing. So as in, how does a big trend, how does something become a phenomenon? How does it go viral? How does it become a thing? And then how you can use that thing to engage your audiences on big topics around that thing. And then we're going to talk a little bit about polls and how they can get very engaging through emotions, talking a little bit about how you can tap into people's humor and how you can tap into people's sadness, how you can tap into people's excitement and use that in terms of making more engaging content.
Awesome. So we're off to look at the Maybe dashboard first, as always.
We are. So here, if you haven't seen this every week, then come on. So this is the Maybe dashboard. So this is where basically we do everything for you. We help you get better connected with your customers through understanding which type of content is working best for you, what's the most engaging pieces of content, comparing yourself to another business. You can go in and schedule your content now. You can manage people who are talking about you and talking to you on the comments and mentions, and you can even engage with people who have previously engaged with you so that you can keep that influence going and the conversation going. And we also help you with your ad spend as well. We train you up. We do everything for you to make it as easy as possible for you guys to get more social. Now, speaking of social, I'm not going to lie, the last week and a half has been really, really tricky. Last sort of, well, 2 weeks really have been mega, mega tricky for a lot of people because Britain has been at a bit of a standstill, really, you know, whilst we mourn the passing of Her Majesty the Queen, and whilst we look to a new future king, and who are now the king, but at the time, future king. Now, I didn't want to focus too much on the actual passing of the Queen and the funeral and things like that, because it just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. And also, it wasn't something that I guess, you know, what we focus on here is about businesses and how they engage with people and give you guys hints and tips and ideas on how you can do the same. And actually, the biggest thing that stood out to us about the last week or so with regards to how people, places, celebrities, brands, the one thing that they all really, really focused on was 2 words: the queue. The queue. So
I love how it's capitalized, and as we go through this, will see how it has become a thing in its own right. And I just kind of want to caveat this and say, this isn't to make light of the last week or so. In fact, I think it's an incredibly British thing, queuing, anyway, as it is, and actually as well as the Queen and the royals, the queue side of things has actually become something, as we'll see, that people have taken, I guess, quite a pride in being British about.
It has. I think it's been something that during a sad time has weirdly united people. And I think that most people can identify with when a loved one or someone has passed away. A lot of the time we have to cling on to the good things and cling on to little bits of fun that you can have in amongst that, where you can still celebrate life. And I think that what the queue, the capitalized, the queue has been that, like this is a huge thing for Britain, what has happened and what is happening at the moment. And the thing that's come out of that is everybody coming together and forming an orderly queue, and how that has been managed, all the things that happened in the queue. So that's, I guess, what we're going to talk about today. It is serious business. It's not a joke. This is actually us genuinely showing you how the queue became a phenomenon in the midst of, a really, really serious thing, and how people have, I guess, used that to connect better with their customers, connect better with other people, and how it's actually brought Britain together during quite a tricky time. So basically, you can see on the left here, this is from Sky News, and this was aerial footage of the queue. And if you haven't actually gone in and looked at it, which I imagine most people will have by now, if you haven't gone in and looked at it, please go in and look at this, because it's stretched for miles. The government set up a live tracker to give people an estimate for how long the wait times were and how far it stretched. Sometimes it was, like 8 hours, 9 hours. Some people were waiting for 15, 16 hours. And although it sort of thinned out towards the end, people were still waiting and still being diligent, and people were still waiting the whole way through to pay their respects to Her Majesty the Queen. And I think what was interesting was, you can see from that aerial footage there, it was like almost like a sort of military style operation to make that work. That took volunteers, it took manpower, it took the police, it took St John's ambulance, it took people walking around with water, it took portaloos, it took people doing Deliveroos. I mean, it literally had everything so that people were safe and looked after and got through the night if they were waiting overnight and things like that in the queue. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was how, I guess, this, which is obviously from a serious thing, the footage is what sparked the thing, which is what I'm going to call the phenomenon, the viral, and how it became the queue, how it became a name. So not just queuing, but the queue, which we'll talk about in a minute, how it's become, I guess, this sort of huge phenomenon that's quite literally been talked about across the world, but almost celebrated in the United Kingdom. So one of the things that came out for me from the queue was stories. So when something goes viral, and by viral, I mean quite literally, people see it and it just explodes. Everyone is talking about it. It gets its own hashtag, it gets its own name, it gets its own memes, it gets its own GIFs. And that happens really, really quickly on social media. And it happens because of things like what you're about to see on the right, which is stories, it's people, it's what happens in a specific time frame, and people pull it out, people spot similarities and things, and it just takes on a life of its own. And that is the power of social media with regards to this, and that is honestly what brought Britain together in a lot of ways over the last week or two, was just celebrating the good old British queue. So here on the left, everybody had that kind of footage, right? On the right, Channel 4, they happened to interview a young couple. Sorry, it wasn't a young couple, but they're kind of becoming one. So they interviewed two strangers, Jack and Zoe, who met in the queue when they were going to see the Queen lying in state. And this is them being interviewed, that they basically met at 10:30 the night before. They've waited, they got chatting, no one else to speak to. They kind of walked the queue together, and actually they really hit it off. So they decided that they were going to go and watch the funeral together. Not quite a date, but a kind of date, sort of. Yeah, they've basically made like a bit of a romantic connection whilst waiting in a queue. Now, that was the interview. It was just a nice story to come out of, quite a difficult time, right? But that's not the thing. The thing that came off the back of this. So the queue's the big thing, the big topic, the thing that everyone's talking about. But then these guys went viral. So all it started with was Cupid. So you'll see at the bottom there, the Cupid. And then if we actually go into it, what we should be able to see is everyone else's version of this. And it just completely took off, because you know what? Everyone loves a love story. Everyone loves making puns. And it just became huge. So there you go. So this is replying back, Cupid. And then you'll see lots of people are replying back to that with lots of little GIFs. And then when you go into the actual tweet itself, which it should have done, when you go into the actual tweet itself, you'll see lots and lots and lots of people that have come up with variations of Cupid.
Let's try it again. Just give me one sec.
No worries. You should be able to see the original tweet. But basically, it was everything from it becoming, there we go. So you should be able to see the comments in there. Yeah, there was everything from people tagging in celebrities getting involved with the chat. Then it became them talking about how the next season of the big Netflix show, The Crown, was going to be all based around the dating site. It would all be about this coming. It was all about how a generation could be born out of quite literally meeting in the queue. Would they call the baby Elizabeth? Things like that. It was sweet and it's funny and it's lovely. Queen flicks and chill. That's obviously a thing. People turned that into one wedding in a queue. People just absolutely loved it. And it's all off the back of, quite literally like two people who just happened to speak to a reporter, who just happened to pick up on there being quite a cute story, and it turned viral. Now, this is what I mean by thing becoming a thing. It is about emotion. And it is about something, I guess, evoking something in you. And it might be that you're just really funny and you can come up with a really good pun. It might be that it evokes some kind of romance in you or some kind of nostalgia. But there's so many ways that people can really get involved with something like that. Whereas, for example, if I was a business, I would 100% be sharing that and be looking at, where did you meet your other half? Do you have any interesting stories? I remember when I used to work in a shopping centre, we had people all the time that would meet at a specific seating area. The shopping centre had been there for 30 odd years, and there was couples that would come back on their every anniversary and go and meet at that seating area, and then they'd go out for dinner because that's where they met. So there's things like that will spark nostalgia, and it's at a time when people really need it. So I guess if you're looking for engagement and you want to focus on, I guess, like sort of celebrating life, celebrating love, celebrating being British, that's something the queue, the big thing, has sparked, that Britishness, the queue. And then there's this, which is that love in the queue, and also our love of gifts and memes and things like that as well. I don't know if you've got anything you want to add to that, Amy.
I just think it really kind of, just to reiterate, really speaks to that. The news cycle was very, very quiet, as was the right thing to do whilst we were in the kind of mourning period, and people found a way, as you said at the beginning, to find something light-hearted in it. And I think that's just something that is uniquely British, I think, actually, that sense of humour. Yeah.
I think we do like to find humor in dark times, and I think that is a British thing. I think we do like to try and, I don't know, like just make the best out of bad situations and difficult situations, and I think that this is just a lovely example of that. And I think there's so many different things that any business could take from that. If you did want to focus more on the nice things that have come out of this, about the communities coming together, about people coming together. This is quite literally two people that met in a queue, and apparently people are marrying them off already. So, you know, it's lovely. And I think it also shows that, you know, like we do like to chat. We like to, you know, chat on the bus or chat on the train and things like that. And it's just, you know, how two people have met and then suddenly it's become, you know, this is their little legacy, if you like. It's really, really nice. And then this is basically a mix. So with anything, social media, when there's a thing, there's GIFs and there's memes and there's jokes. Now, this is nothing to do with joking about what's happened with the Queen. This is talking about the queue and people, because I think the other thing we're very good at in Britain is we like to poke fun at ourselves. And that's what this was about. This was about British people loving a queue. So this was everything from celebrities like Richard Osman. I get stressed when the news pulls people from the queue to interview them because I worry they'll lose their place and have to go back again. I got 7,500 likes on and 235 replies on Twitter. And it was all just similar sort of thing, people taking the mickey. Someone wrote queue is a great word, the actual important letter, and then the four more silently behind it waiting in line. Again, 198,000 likes. That is massive. Huge, huge, huge. And then again, another one, the producers of The Crown watching the queue and thinking how many extras they're going to need to pay for season 9. Again, a bit more tongue in cheek, but a bit on the line, but still, again, speaks to, I guess, what is going on in the world just now. It's all about, I guess, being able to read the crowd, understand what is right for your feeds, your business, how you feel about something, and also understanding your customer base, knowing what they'll find funny, knowing what they'll find heartwarming. And I guess it's anything from like the sort of like the madness of, you know, like watching people, I guess, you know, all come together and queue and things like that. It must be such a foreign thing to like so many different people, but for us it's like, no, this is just what we do. We get in and we queue, we celebrate our queuing, we you know, our stiff upper lip and all that kind of thing. So I think that what I really liked about this is that everyone got involved with tweeting, everyone got involved in talking about the queue, everyone got involved with using GIFs and memes in a different way and taking the mickey out of not the situation, but about that particular British thing, which I think is worth celebrating, I guess. So I think it's thinking about how did it become a thing? So one person noticed it. Well, everyone noticed obviously the queue. Everyone was talking about the queue. That became the big thing. But then it's picking out little bits of the queue, little snippets that I guess think that relate back to that person, and then that's what then became the viral thing. That's how the conversation has kept going, even, you know, after the fact, is because we're all looking at it from a slightly different angle, whether it's terrible queue stories of someone skipping you, or whether it is just poking fun at it a little bit. You know, it's what's personal to you, and that's where that reaction comes from. So I think that's what was really interesting, is that quite literally everybody was talking about the queue, but everyone was doing it in a really heartwarming way. It wasn't taking the mickey for Mickey's sake. It was being funny for funny's sake. It was actually going, we all need a bit of a laugh right now. Let's come together and let's all poke fun at the way that the way that we are.
Yeah, a little bit of self-deprecation.
Yeah, I think it's important. And then on that, so the queue got its own hashtag, and then there's lots of other the queue hashtags, and then of course there's other ones that you can follow as well. So if you do want to go in and get engaged in some of that content, or kind of have a bit of a look and see if there's anything that might work for you guys, you know, that especially if you've done a bit of a social media blackout, it might be something that you can kind of, you know, use as a nice way of engaging people again after the last sort of week or two. So yeah, you can go in to the Maybe platform, you can go into the engage section, and then you can go in and you can start adding hashtags in that you want to follow. And then we also do recommended hashtags as well. So if there's ones that we think would work well for you and your business, or there's big national ones, we put them in there and you can follow them as well. So just as a little snippet, a little top tip really, if you want to do this without having to go into all the individual channels, that's the easiest way of doing it. So when I'm saying it becomes a thing, it quite literally becomes a thing when it has its own page on Wikipedia. Now, like or loathe Wikipedia, it is a thing. And the queue is now officially a thing. So we no longer just queue. There are queues, and then there's the queue. So quite literally, it says the queue was 2 rows of people waiting to walk past the coffin of Queen Elizabeth II while she was lying in state. So it gives you all the details. So someone has gone to all the trouble of doing that. They've then linked it with, I guess, the piece of history, which is the death and state funeral of Queen Elizabeth. That's how much of a thing this has become. So when I say this is a topic of conversation, whether it's the more somber side of it or whether it is the celebrating the Great British Queue and everything that goes on as part of that, we've all got stories. It's become a thing. You cannot hide from the thing. So basically embrace it a little bit and think about, even from your own standpoint, does your business have its own Wikipedia page? Does your place have its own Wikipedia page? Is there a thing? The equivalent of, I don't know, the Scottish Loch Ness Monster, if you like, up in Scotland, is there a thing within your area that maybe you could get engaged with? It's nothing to do with the queue, nothing to do with what's going on, but it's how something becomes a phenomenon, how it becomes a thing that's talked about. Look at what your local ones are and maybe get a bit engaged within them as well. Now, this one's an interesting one. So I'm going to start with the left, good old David Beckham. So David Beckham has been hailed a hero by people all around the world, by celebrities, by brands, by, everybody, for standing in line to see the Queen at rest. And it was headline news because he's a huge celebrity. He's met her numerous times. And he didn't use his celebrity status in any way to try and get in front of anybody. He waited in line like Joe Public, like the rest of us, basically, like any of us would. He waited overnight. And he was incredibly emotional when he actually got to see Her Majesty's coffin, and I think it spoke volumes about him, about his character, and I think people really identified with that. So I guess that's why that was headline news. However, the viral part is all of the other stories and all of the things that people have taken from it. One of them is this, which I think you should be able to link to, which is a clip comparing David Beckham to Simon from the Inbetweeners. It went absolutely nuts. People completely loved it. And it was the Inbetweeners that posted it. And it was them taking the mickey a wee bit out of poor David Beckham, but it was in a tongue-in-cheek, sweet way. So yeah, the idea is he's come home super excited, high on life, really, really happy. I'm just, living like full of the joys of spring, and then goes up and has an absolute breakdown, as you can see. So he is, any Inbetweeners fan would recognize that, would find it funny. So it identifies with a particular genre of people and audience. But it is also just, it's tongue-in-cheek. It's taking the mickey out of a big celebrity who's, been revered, and lots of people are talking about how incredible he is, and they're just making a bit of a joke, which actually, it went down really, really well. People found it funny. And that tweet from the Inbetweeners then got front page news across so many newspapers. They all covered it. And I think that's what was really interesting. It was on BBC, it was on Channel 4. And that was off the back of just somebody like making an observation and going, oh, will he ever get that knighthood? And that I found really, really interesting. And again, it shows another angle and how again, things become things and things have talking points. So it's about staying focused on what's going on in the news, staying focused on what's going on and spotting these things and being on social media and keeping an eye on stuff, because that is how the trends happen. That is how these things happen. And that is how something like that, I think we can all identify with, and people can identify with David Beckham. And when I go back to the emotion side of David Beckham, because that seems like that's a normal person thing to do. He might have multi-millions, and he's, this huge household name all around the world. but actually he stood there and he said it was because his dad was massively into the royal family. He's met the Queen and he really wanted to pay his respects and do it in a normal way. And then the other things that went, I guess, not quite as viral, but the other things that came out of that when you Google this is stories about him. It is pictures of him, people talking about how they met him in the queue and they had the chat, how he got donuts for people. So that is, I guess, how you celebrate like the nice things that happen around something that's quite difficult and quite somber. It is pulling out the nice stories in amongst it. And I think that we got really good at that during COVID. I'm sure Amy would agree with that. I think we all did get really good at being self-deprecating, about celebrating the little things, about and brands as well, about being able to poke fun at themselves, being able to pull out the nice little things and about being stuck in and lockdown and that kind of thing. We all got really good at that, and there should be no reason why you can't do something like this with the little snippets that come out of the queue. And then I guess there's the flip side of that, which is something else that's gone viral and not really being stopped talking about. So Holly and Philip, they made headline news because they appeared to have skipped the queue using their celebrity status. Now, why this is viral is exactly the same reason as David Beckham, but sort of in reverse, if you like. So he's been revered because he did not use his celebrity status to skip a queue. Now, whether they did or not, it doesn't matter. Public perception is that they did. And
I think it's really important to pull out that they were there in a professional.
Oh yeah, they were. But what I'm talking about is what people.
But as you say, public.
Yeah, exactly. So it's they've come out and they've said that they weren't, and they were there in a professional capacity, etc. So they've explained it. But either way, the reason why it is headline news is because British people don't like queue skipping. That is what it is. It is a pet peeve of the majority of people. And that's what this is about. It's not really about Holly and Phil. What this has sparked is fury with people about queue skipping. That is what the topic of conversation is. It's not really, did they, didn't they, that kind of thing. And I think that's really important for me to say. I don't care whether they did or not. That's nothing to do with me. What's interesting to me about this is the conversation that sparked off the back of this and why people are so angry. No one likes waiting, whether it's in line for a bus or in line for a train or at a shop and then someone skips in front of you. It is infuriating. I went to Nice a couple of weeks ago and it happened to be waiting on a train and I was furious. And yeah, I honestly, like it bothers people so much. So I think what's really interesting about this is looking at whether it's celebrities using their status, it doesn't really matter. It's the anger and outrage from people about queue skipping that people are talking about. And what you'll find is that people are sharing their stories in tweets, on Facebook, on Instagram. I've seen it on LinkedIn, talking about that time where they were shoved out of the way, waiting on a drink or waiting at a restaurant or whatever it is. Does that make sense? It's looking at the reasons why if the queue's the big thing, what are the topics that have come out of it? And it is queue skipping, it is celebrating, like that we love a good queue, it is the conversations that happen when you're in a queue, it is the fact that even famous people have to wait in a queue because that's just what we do. It is all of these different topics have come out that any business or any person can get involved in talking about, because guess what, if it evokes something in you, it'll evoke something in me. And as you've seen, my face changed when I even thought about that person that skipped in front of me in the queue. So it's something that people will have stories about and people will want to engage with. So even if it's nothing to do with your business, there's no reason why you can't, not necessarily taking Holly and Phil, but actually talking about the queue and talking about, queue etiquette, and talking about, especially if you're a business that does have to tend to get queues like bars, restaurants, that kind of thing, is thinking about how do you manage that, thinking about, like what's the best queue story you've got, what's the worst queue story you've got. There's so much content that be created to engage properly with people after a time period when people haven't really known what to say or how to act or what to comment on and that kind of thing. This is an interesting way of you being able to take the thing and then look at the different topics that have come up within that thing.
I think that's a really interesting point that you make there around businesses and queuing and things like that, because years and years ago, like when I was a teenager, I used to work for Next, and whenever Next used to have a sale, you know, the queues for the next sale would always make the headlines Boxing Day or the day after Boxing Day. And it was, you know, there were always people whose job it was to hand out sweets in the queue before it opened, you know, especially during the winter one, and queue manage and things like that. Like, it's that the expectations, you're right, around how we behave in a queue, they're almost set in stone, I think, when it comes.
They are.
And if you note what Holly has said there, she didn't say, they didn't say we didn't jump the queue. They said we would never jump a queue.
Yeah, you're so right.
Like, no, we would never do that.
Yeah. We are not queue skippers. We will never be known as queue skippers. And I think you're absolutely bang on there with that, is that they literally, when I've watched some of the interviews, that's what they say. We would always queue. We would never skip a queue. We would never skip in line. And I think it's because it's such a thing to be known as that person. It is exactly the same, you know, like for people at the school gates, you wait in line for your child to come out, and anyone that skips that queue gets glared at by everyone very uncomfortably for quite a long time. So yeah. It's something that I think brings us all together, which goes back to why the queue is the thing, why it's the thing, because there's so many elements to it that, again, is about British people or people in this country during a difficult time being able to poke fun, being able to see the funny side, also being able to make a stand, also being able to celebrate togetherness. There's so many aspects of it, I think, that came out for me when looking at all of this, that, again, I think that as businesses, as business owners, that you can kind of come together and look at these little elements and use it to engage your customers, because this is the biggest thing. It's about how do you talk to your customers now after a difficult sort of week and a half. So these are little things that you can use as conversation openers. That's all this is. It's not about selling your products. This is about engaging with your customers.
Joining a conversation, I think, which is also something we saw over COVID. You know, it's like, okay, it's like walking that line of, should we be posting anything? Should we not be posting anything at all? If in doubt, you can always engage with what people are already talking about in a respectful way, which is what I think these news articles and the tweets that we saw before, that's what that's about. It's about just joining a conversation that already exists, that is topical, that is relevant, and it isn't just respectful.
Yeah, exactly. And then on that, if you do want to, I guess, make sure that you are on top of, I guess, you know, like the moving stories and things, because obviously there's still things that are coming out constantly. Make sure that you have, because you can create little groups. So I mentioned hashtags, but you can also create groups for businesses, or it might be news outlets. It might be magazines. It might be, I don't know, the Daily Mail and various other ones, whoever you want to follow, that I guess would create content that might be engaging for your customers. There's no harm in going on to Maybe, and you can go in and you can start creating groups of them, and you can go in and physically, you can comment, you can get involved in the conversation, but you can also turn it into your own content. You can reshare, or you might just be able to take some really good examples and turn it into something that you can talk to your customers about as well. But it's just a really good way of staying up to date without having to go into all the different channels and all the different accounts to try and find good content. So on that, you can choose one competitor or one business or one person that, I don't know, it might be that you just find really inspirational, one brand that you find really inspirational, and you can compare your site, your social to their social forever. So you can add that in, and then if you want to compare more or you want to add more to the system, then just let us know. Just click on the little blue button when you're in, or contact us, and we can help you find the right plan for you.
Yeah, so this piece is all about being able to see what works for other people and borrow their moves. It's all about being able to listen to other people's conversations to improve and learn for your own content. So it's, as Donna said, you always can add one conversation or competitor, or as Donna said, brand you find interesting for free. And then if you want to add any more, you can add 2 for £35 a month, 5 for £95 a month, and anything above that, come and have a chat with us and we can create you a bespoke plan.
So I guess just a bit of a summary from me then. So ensure that you're following all the big media outlets on social media so you can spot the thing and get ahead. So you want to be, one of the people that is, like, even if you're not the one that's spotting it, if everyone's suddenly talking about something and that you think, oh my goodness, my customers would absolutely love that, whether it is David Beckham in the queue wearing a bonnet, whatever it might be. If it's something that speaks to your customers, take it, use it, talk to them about it. Using memes and GIFs that other people have shared, you can get your own audience engaged with that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are hashtags that you can follow, hashtag meme of the day, hashtags GIF of the day, all that kind of thing. If you want to see whatever the latest ones are, and usually it's whatever trending at that point. There will be old GIFs that have just been, and old memes that have been reimagined and turned into whatever the hot topic is. We've seen that with everything from Love Island to Stranger Things to, what's going on at the moment. So make sure that you are on it with that, because you don't have to come up with your own unless you particularly want to. Ask questions. So run polls. So think about, David Beckham versus Holly and Phil. It's about evoking laughter, poking fun. It's about pride of a nation, or is it about upsetting a nation? Is it about upsetting, people by, queue skipping? Is it about queues not being managed properly? Whatever it might be, there'll be things that you can ask people in order to get them engaged just now. And you never know, it might also help, help, as Amy said, like when it comes to Christmas time, thinking about what people now need from a queue. You never know. And then keep on top of your social media, ensure that you're switched on to things to make sure that you're spotting the new trends. Keep an eye on it all, because I think that's the key. I think people are always worried about what content to post, but actually a lot of it is about what content is being posted and about you engaging with that content, and about making sure that you're responding back to customers, making sure that you are engaged in other people's conversations and big brands conversations, your local council conversations, because that is how you're seen. That is how you get more of the right people to your feeds, rather than worrying so much about what you're going to post. It should be about that kind of engagement and actually staying on it and active.
Awesome. I think this was a really interesting one to do this week. So it would have been quite difficult for us just to go kind of, full back to normal without acknowledging the impact of the news cycle on social media over the last sort of 10 days.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, it's a tricky subject. It's a difficult time. This week's just a bit strange, I think, for most of us, and most of us are kind of just reeling from Monday. I think there's just so much going on for all of us. So hopefully, if nothing else, what I would love you to take away from all of this is that as Amy said, the news cycle is highly influential in what is going on in social media, but how things become viral and is all down to how people react to a thing, and then the various topics that sit underneath that thing. But we will be back next week, won't we?
We will. We'll be back next Wednesday at 10. If at any time you need to speak to anybody at Maybe, we run training sessions throughout the week at 10 a.m. So Wednesday, it's myself and Donna talking to you about the best in social media. On a Thursday, it's how to get started with Facebook and Instagram ads. Friday is a bit more of an advanced masterclass on ads if you want to do, I guess, more advanced things than just getting your ads account set up. Then join us on Friday at 10. Monday is all about how to use Maybe. So if you've looked at this and thought, okay, I'd like to, have that ability to see what conversations are engaging people and see what content's working for me and for others. If you join us on a Monday at 10, you'll hear more about that. And Tuesday is all about getting started with social. So it's hosted by our own social media managers. They do a great job of breaking down everything from the basics of you know, how do I start an Instagram business account, to how do I create really great video content. So something for everyone every day of the week at 10, and at any time if you want to speak to Maybe, when you log into your Maybe account, you will see that little blue button in the bottom right of the screen, and that connects you to a member of the Maybe team. So that's
Awesome.
it. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next week. Have a great week.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Anna.